moved on to the experience section of your profile. And of course, you want to Canadianize your experience. So LinkedIn makes it really easy for you to enter this information. It shows you what type of data you need to give it: company name, title, location, time period, and description. Easy. A LinkedIn profile, like a resume, is not a complete history of your entire life. You don't need to include anything before college or university. You do not need to include every single job you've ever had in your life. If, like many immigrants, you've just arrived in Canada and you have taken a job just to have some money and a bit of Canadian work experience, and we call these survival jobs. If you've taken a survival job, you don't have to put it on your LinkedIn profile.
One of the things I think often happens is, maybe for us, we don't have a lot of professional experience. Or maybe we have been working in one sector, in one field, and we're moving into a different field. Or for many of you, maybe you have extensive experience in your home country, but you have less experience here. None of those things means that you can't put together a great LinkedIn profile. And we're going to talk about all of the pieces you can add to put together something that is really compelling and persuasive and makes people excited about you as a candidate. Now, the next place obviously is, at a high level, all of your education, training, institutions that you have, that you've attended. You can add within this any honors that you have, right? If you attended a school and you were a really high-performing student at school, that's exactly the kind of thing that you want to put. If you're an honors student, as an employer, employers want to know that you are a person who's capable of high academic performance. So make sure you include that. You can also do this thing now in LinkedIn, which I really like, both for the schools and academic institutions that you've attended, and then also for places of work. If they're big companies, you can link to that company itself so that the company's logo or the school's logo appears. And that can be a really nice way of creating a really official look on your LinkedIn profile, okay? So make sure you do that searching as you're entering institutions and see if you've entered any institution that is well known or is in LinkedIn in some way on their own, it actually will show up with a little logo. It's a bit of a summary of your responsibilities. As you're entering this, you'll have an area where you enter all those things I just mentioned: the name of the company, the period of time that you were there. Personally, I don't do months. You know, some people will say from May 2014 to January 2015. I don't personally find that important. I just want to know the years. Unless you're in a situation where you've been doing a number of short-term jobs or short-term contracts, then you want to make sure you put in the specific months. Otherwise, if they're jobs you had for a couple of years, just the year is fine. Then you're going to have a little section where you add a summary of what you did. And I just want to share with you again my perspective as somebody who's done some hiring. Often what people do is they say the specific responsibilities that they had. And that can be very important, right? So if you were somebody who was working as a cashier, you mentioned that you were a cashier, you were responsible for making change, maybe you were the person who was doing the opening of a store in the morning and the closing at night. So you'll mention all of those responsibilities that you had for whatever your job is. But there's something really interesting that I see happening now that I think is even better. So it's to put all of that information, but then to also use that summary section to talk about your key accomplishments, right? The things that you did at that job that really made you stand out, or the things that you're most proud of. I read an article last year. It was toward the middle of the year. It was from Google. Everybody knows Google, right? The search engine. They're a massive company out of California. And this article, which I'll try to find for you, it was about what they look for in resumes when they're hiring at Google as a corporate entity, as a company. And what they're looking for is in my time at my job, I increased this by this much. I was responsible for this kind of new project or this kind of initiative. So rather than just saying what your responsibilities were, use LinkedIn as an opportunity for you to really profile the things that made you stand out at that job, the things, your accomplishments, the things that you're most proud of. And wherever possible, if you have metrics or measures or things that demonstrate your success at that place, make sure you put those in there as well. It is still relatively uncommon. Many people are not doing that, and I have to tell you, when you're looking at resumes, when you've received 100, 150, 200 resumes for a job, and you see that most people have just said what their responsibilities were, but a couple of people are actually demonstrating the difference that they made at that job, it really makes their resume stand out. And so I would encourage you to do that in LinkedIn. I think it's a very important thing to do. Also, if at the job that you were at, you received any kind of recognition, like if you were the employee of the month, say you were the employee of the month. If you were recognized by your colleagues for doing something that was really significant, some kind of accomplishment like that, you can add all of that under your summary. And then one last note. Let's say that you've spent time at a company and you came in at a junior level, and then after maybe a year you were promoted, and then after another couple of years you were promoted again. I think you want to demonstrate all of that movement within the company in your LinkedIn profile by putting separate entries in for each position you had. Okay? List them out separately. List out a summary of what you did in each of those jobs separately. List out some key accomplishments, some of the things that you're most proud of from each of those jobs that you had. It does two things. It's going to give an employer a very accurate sense of what your skills are from all of the things that you've done there. It's also going to show them that you grew within that job, that there was a lot of movement in your time at that company. And I think that's very important for employers to see. They want to know that you've been progressing, that you've been growing in your time at that job. And I mention this because I once had a resume for a person who had been with a company for a long time, and they didn't do what I've described. It looked like they only had one job in the entire time that they were there. And we actually chose to interview this person, and it was only in the interview that I discovered that they had done all of this other work, they had all of this other experience. So if you have done things like that, moved positions within a job, or maybe there was a time, let's say you're working in an administrative role, and for 6 months you were put onto a different project to give administrative support to somebody else. Or you're somebody who's working in finance and you were taken over to a very different project for a while. A secondment, if you're working within the public sector and you've been seconded to work on a different kind of job, put all of those things in there because they start to tell the full story of what your experience has been, and it's not giving the complete picture of who you are and what you're capable of if you don't put that kind of information in there. Okay?